Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dugout Daily. I'm Charlie, and I'm joined by Bernard, Callum, and Jack. How are you all?
Great,
Good, a little bit cold.
Yeah, freezing. I've got the heating on.
If the teeth start chattering, you know why.
Yeah, it was a cold one yesterday as well at the Etihad. We'll go to you first, Bernard. A 2-1 win, goals scored by Gundogan and Fernandinho for City with a late Lanzini goal for West Ham. It was a good goal as well, to be fair to him. We'll go to you first, Bernard. Thoughts on the performance overall?
Yeah, I mean that's why when you're 1-0 up and you sort of dominating a game, you need to add another, don't you? Because I mean, goals like that Lanzini's can happen all the time. So you can't just sit on it. And yeah, we look comfortable. West Ham was struggling to create too much, but you just don't know, do you? That's the problem. I mean, but fortunately we'd scored that second, the second one. But that's what we've got to do. And I think the conditions. I thought some of the football City played was sublime. I don't think West Ham coped as well with City with the conditions. That's for sure. And all credit to the groundsman at half time. I'm sure some West Ham fans were hoping he's going to be called off or something, but obviously the groundsman did the bit, didn't he, and sorted it out. I was happy with it. It should have been. 2-1 probably wasn't a reflection of the game. I remember the game back in February, guys, at the Etihad, the 2-1 win then. And that was, you could have won that. You could have beat us that day. West Ham were excellent that day. Should have had at least a draw. And this was the same score, but it was by no means a similar game. City was really dominant. We just didn't we didn't score the goals, unfortunately. But yeah, it was a little bit. Say the weather played its part, but City played better as the weather got worse, which was really weird to see.
Yeah. We'll go to you then, Jack, as a West Ham fan. 2-1 loss to City at the Etihad. Thoughts on the performance?
Defensively, all right. Coped very well in our own final third, and did very well in sort of the last line of defence. But struggled to interrupt your creation, struggled to stop you from getting into the final third, struggled to create anything ourselves. So didn't really function well in first phase of the press, and didn't get out at all for most of the game. So kind of reverted to the sort of counter-attacking style that we played for the second half of last season, but lacked any kind of ability really in terms of when we're being direct and trying to transition out of defence, just misplacing passes. And you're very good. Your counter press is probably the best in the league at the moment. Liverpool are the only team that can rival that. So you have to be really sharp. It has to be one touch and out of your feet, and that just wasn't there today. It wasn't sticking as well when we hit Antonio. So when you have kind of a lack of fluency on the ball, and then your striker isn't keeping hold of it when it comes into his feet, yeah, really difficult to get anything going.
Yeah, and Callum, also as a West Ham fan, thoughts on the performance at the Etihad yesterday?
Yeah, obviously you're never buzzing when you lose, but I don't think it's anything to like really get too upset about. Like, it's just one of them. You're coming up against one of the world's best teams, and you only lost by a goal, so you can't. It's not like, oh, back to the drawing board. Like, I think, like Jack's rightly said, we defended fairly well, considering how dominant you were and like you pointed out earlier as well, it could have been a much higher scoreline, and I think that probably is testament to how well we did defend in certain aspects of the game, particularly last line of defence. There was a few clearances off the goal line as well, which kept us in it. But yeah, it was just one of those days. Antonio is obviously so integral to the way we play, and when we succeed, it's usually because he's in fine form, and unfortunately he just really was not yesterday. And maybe there's something to be said about the fact that we probably need to work out a way to be effective when he's not in the game, because it's not sustainable to be able to continue to perform at this level if basically the team just falls apart when we can't get him ticking, and that's something for Moyes to think about and the rest of the coaching staff. And obviously coming into January, I think me and Jack will both be anticipating the arrival of at least one striker, because we've gone half the season without a backup, which has been part of.
You don't need strikers, guys.
Yeah, to be fair, we're probably talking to the wrong people about that. But yeah, all in all, I mean, I'm not too disheartened. It's difficult to beat yourself up about it, especially given that it's now 2 losses on the bounce in the league after that performance against Wolves. But yeah, I'm not too concerned, and well, we've got our biggest bogey team in the week, so that's going to be a bit of a struggle. But yeah.
Can I just ask the guys? I mean, obviously, I saw that when you played Wolves, you said you were a bit tired. I know a lot of the first team didn't play in Vienna, did they? In Austria. Were they tired again yesterday? Were they still tired, do you think? I mean, say it was a bit lackluster at times, I thought. They defended well, as you said, but apart from that, they just, they were tired against Wolves. They looked a little bit tired against City as well. Did they need a bit of a rest?
What do you think, Cal? Go on.
I think, well, this kind of comes, I think, with having a small squad, partly in the sense that we don't have, well, you guys probably have the best squad in the league in terms of rotation, and we don't unfortunately have that luxury. Like, you have to, Rice and Souček have to play pretty much every minute in the league if they can, and with that does come legginess. But that comes across as though we're making excuses for him, and I don't think that we should be doing that, and it shouldn't come across like that. I think the main thing, not necessarily tiredness, but just a lack of fluidity, and that comes down to me and Jack have spoke about this before, but the absence of Ogbonna at the back, and like it just completely froze the balance. We're used to having a left-footed centre back on the left and a right-footed centre back on the back, which allows us to play out and have options both sides. And with Zuma playing in an unfamiliar role where he's having to change his body shape and stuff, that say if it takes him 2 or 3 seconds to adjust his position so that he's comfortable, that's 3 seconds for City's extremely effective pressers to come and close us in, and then you just can't get out because you don't have that time. Whereas if you had a left footer, he doesn't have to change his body position, you just play it out, and then that's why we've been so effective on the counter previously this season. So yeah, I think tiredness, they're always going to be tired, but yeah, I think it's more structural for me anyway.
You've done well in Europe. I mean, that's obviously going to take some toll, isn't it? I mean, obviously you could rest a few players the other day because obviously, and you still beat them and you still qualified obviously for the last 16. So that's great. But yeah, I mean, because I went down to the London Stadium for the Carabao Cup game. I was there then. And there's a lot of lads, younger ones, come on there that I'd never quite heard of, and they looked okay. Obviously, you sort of dealt, like we both made lots of changes that game, didn't we? I think we both made 8 or 9 changes each for that match. So, yeah, I mean, obviously there's a squad there, but as you said, it's that experience and that nous, isn't it, that's probably missing, as you say,
100%.
Yeah, Talking Mew, a United fan, says it was always going to be hard against City, though I feel West Ham are still in the process of improving and they're getting better all the time. Over the last couple of years, especially since the start of the lockdown, West Ham have improved a lot. We'll go to you first, Jack. How much have West Ham improved over the last 18 months to 2 years?
Well, I mean, it's a completely different team, isn't it? It's come a very, very long way in that period. It's chalk and cheese from where we were 18 months ago, for sure. Very different stylistically, very different approach to how we play the game. Yeah, and I think on all fronts, I don't really want to kind of fall into doing the cliches of sort of fitness and all that stuff, but just the general approach to squad building has really progressed things massively. And yeah, we're not so reliant any longer on having 1 or 2 star players in the team with not very much quality around them, and then very reliant on individual performances. There's much more of a kind of structured approach to building from the level we're at and developing players as we go. And yeah, I think there's a squad that's happy for the first time in a really, really long time, and the feeling in the dressing room seems to be really positive. That bleeds out onto the pitch, and then that the fans feed off that and play into it in a really positive way. So for the first time really since we moved to the new stadium, there's a bit of harmony between the whole club.
Yeah.
So that works in our favor massively. So come a long way behind the scenes, and then on the pitch that's just working really well at the moment. I think it helps to have a manager who's got 2 or 3 other managers as his coaching staff. So we've got a really, really great team of staff there at the moment who are working on things on the training pitch. And you can kind of see as well, I mean, in the Pellegrini era we kind of had one way of playing, whereas now under Moyes we'll change the way we play depending on the opposition. and sometimes that works in our favour. In the last 2 weeks, and that hasn't necessarily worked so well, because we kind of come away from what we do well and lost that against Wolves and against yourselves. But has worked very well for us across the last 18 months generally.
Yeah,
you need to get back on track, guys, don't you? You don't want this to become a thing now. So obviously, to say the next game is very important, obviously, for you.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on. We're trying to find a new system at the moment, which does really affect how fluent we are. There's been a lot of changes to how we're trying to balance the left side, as Cal said, without Ogbonna. Trying to find a way to get the same impact out of Cresswell is a real problem for the coaching staff at the moment. And he is generally how we get the ball out of defenses. I think the stats this season are something like 37% of our line breaking passes out of defense come through Cresswell. 37% of the whole team, actually, I think. So how we progress the ball is usually all down that side. So we've got to find a way to get the ball quickly out to him. And he's not great under pressure. He needs a couple of extra seconds compared to the rest of the defense. So finding it it's probably going to be Diop coming in, someone who's more comfortable on the left side. But yeah, we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Same question for you, Callum. How much have West Ham improved over the last 18 months to 2 years?
Well, yeah, insane amounts, really. Yeah, I was going to say, Jack spoke for about 30 minutes there, so there's not much left for me to say. But yeah, no, it's just general, I think, attitude probably is the biggest takeaway. But when you're not looking at the table, but I mean, West Ham for a long time before had been a pretty toxic place to be as a fan, as a player, as a member of staff, and that much like the positivity bleeds out on the pitch now, that toxicity bled out and resulted in some truly horrible performances and horrible seasons. And it just wasn't a great place to go, really. I didn't go to many games during that time, mainly because I was living I was living in Liverpool, so it was a bit difficult. But I did go to all the away games. But yeah, it's just there's so much more buoyancy around the club now in every department. Like, everyone just looks so happy. I think bizarrely, talking about a prime example is a player that's not actually at the club at the minute, but seeing how Lingard basically resurrected his career just by entering a dressing room where he was respected and everyone cared for each other, and it just clearly brought out a side of him that he hadn't seen in himself for a long time, and the performances came with it. And I mean, if the rumours are to be believed, then he might be on his way back. Fingers crossed, which would do our squad depth a world of good. But yeah, there's not a great deal to add on top of what Jack said. It's just a great place to be at the minute, and it's nice. It's nice to see after quite a long time of not so nice performances.
Yeah. We'll go to team news then. We'll go with City's team first. It was a 4-3-3, and goal was Ederson. A back four of Walker, Diaz, Laporte, and Cancelo, with Rodri, Gundogan, and Bernardo in midfield, and the front three was Jesus on the right. Mahrez was in the false nine with Sterling on the left. Bernard, thoughts on the team when it came out?
I think it was the bench that interested me, because I mean, we're sort of thinking that if we don't score here, we've got no one to come on and do much to alter the game. That was the problem. I mean, that guy just mentioned before about our squad, but all of a sudden you take Foden, KDB, and Grealish out. Torres obviously more long term, but obviously, you know, we're getting a bit dodgy. I mean, even for a big squad like ours, we haven't got the young lads to come. You know, McAtee and Palmer have been doing a job. But against teams like West Ham, you couldn't risk someone like Palmer. We did against Everton, which surprised us obviously last week, but we couldn't do it in this one. And that's what worried me. If we didn't score, did we? We didn't really have. You know, you guys could have probably done something, because there's no way we had much alternative on the bench, and that's what worried me more than the team was okay. Don't get me wrong, but you still got players like Mahrez and Sterling who haven't been pulling up trees, so it was a little bit of a worry. But obviously, it's the best of what we had available. But yeah, I'm sure if it'd been 0-0 at half time and then sort of 0-0 into 60, 70 minutes, I think we would have been panicking just a little bit.
Yeah. We'll go through the West Ham team news then. It was a 4-2-3-1 with Fabianski in goal, a back four of Ben Johnson, Dawson, Zuma, and Cresswell. Rice and Soucek were in midfield. Fornals was on the right, Masuaku on the left, with Benrahma just behind Antonio. We'll go to you first, Jack. What was your thoughts on the team news when it just came out?
Interesting one. Again, trying to find some balance on the left-hand side. So Masuaku came in to have a left footer on the left, and that's to try and give more time to Cresswell on the ball. Unfortunately, again, as with Wolves, we tried a 3-4-3 there. Didn't work. So it's going to be interesting to see how he solves it. I'm sure Diop will be the next thing we try. But yeah, two things being that Masuaku coming in and Bowen not playing was the main thing from a West Ham perspective that was interesting. Like you said about the bench, Bernard, sorry, is that it's strange as a West Ham fan to go into a game against Man City and to think actually we've got the bench that could change the game here. We've got much more impact on the bench than you guys had. So it was interesting from that perspective, and would have been interesting if we kept the game at 0-0, particularly given how much fluency we lacked. If we'd been able to bring on a few big hitters like Lanzini and Bowen off the bench at 0-0, I think we would have had a real chance. But Masuaku in was the real interesting thing. Everything else kind of normal. Ben Johnson, I think, maybe coming close to losing that spot to Soufal just because of the impact Soufal adds in the final third. But I think we'll probably change system again next week. 3-4-3 last week, 4-4-1-1 this week. We might see a 4-2-3-1 next week. So just trying to find somewhere to settle post Ogbonna injury.
Yeah, and Callum, what was your thoughts on the West Ham team news?
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise for me was the absence of Bowen. We looked into what Moyes had said after and sort of his justifications for it, which Jack has picked up on, the idea of having to balance that, having a left footer outside in Masuaku, and then it was more. I was just more surprised that Bowen was deemed as the necessary absence in that. I'm surprised he didn't maybe drop Fornals or even Benrahma. I mean, Fornals' performances against Wolves was far from impressive, and it was just a bizarre one to put Fornals in again in a position that he's unfamiliar with when you've got Bowen on the bench, who's basically nailed on as that starting figure out on the right. It was just a bizarre one, and it clearly didn't pay off. But like Jack said, it is kind of. Unfortunately, we're in this period of forced experimentation almost just because of some crucial injuries. Crucial injury really at the back, and it's kind of the ripple effects throughout the team has completely offset the balance in every department. So it's just a terrible timing in the sense that it's necessary experimentation because we have to do it. We don't have a choice, but it's just come at probably the worst time in terms of fixture congestion and fixture difficulty. Like we've had Europe, an informed Wolves team, a Europa League night, City, arguably one of the most informed teams in the world, then Brighton, who are our bogey team on Wednesday, and then Chelsea on Saturday. So it's not the best time for us to be trying to figure out what our best starting 11 is without Ogbonna. But it's given the situation, I think 2-1 against a team that were in as good a form as City were. Like you say, at times it was absolutely fluid, like you were just knocking the ball around like it was no one's business. So to come away and not have been absolutely battered 5-0 or 4-0 like we have been in previous seasons by yourselves, I think is some sort of weird kind of progress, maybe.
Yeah. We'll go through the stats then from the game. 69% possession for City with 31% for West Ham. 19 shots to 5, 9 shots on target to 3, 6 shots off target to 1, with 4 block shots for City, only 1 for West Ham. 8 corners to 4, 4 offsides each, 7 fouls to 6, 2 yellow cards for City. 4 big chances to none, 3 big chances missed to none. We hit the woodwork twice, 1 counter-attack shot, 13 shots from inside the box to 1, 6 shots outside the box to 4, 2 saves for Ederson, 6 for Fabianski, 728 passes for City, 330 for West Ham, 90% accurate passes for City, 79% for 70% long balls to 38% for West Ham, and 16% accurate to West Ham's 12%. 40% of City's dribbles to 65% of West Ham's dribbles were completed.
Yes, that's it.
121 times City lost the possession, 126 for West Ham. 38 duels won to 47. 11 aerial duels won to 13. 15 tackles to 16. 5 interceptions to 11. And 11 clearances to 18. We'll go to you first, Bernard. Do you think that represents the game?
Yeah. Well, you know as well as me, Charlie. I mean, most of the stats of the game's very similar. Not just West Ham. Virtually every team we play, even PSG wasn't far short of that stats. And obviously, where we lose out is obviously tackles and stuff, because obviously it's bound to, isn't it? Because obviously that if you're in possession of the ball, you're going to get tackled more than if you're not in possession of the ball. So yeah, I think that's a fair reflection on a game that perhaps should have been more than 2-1 at the end of it. But I say that just shows how just stick in there and you've got a chance, against City. We don't have a striker. We joked about it before, but yeah, midfielders can't always hit the back of the net, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the problem. But yeah, I think it fell. I think it does reflect it. Say we're used to it now, me and Charlie guys. To be honest, we're used to those sort of stats, game in, game out. And if we don't get something like that, there's something wrong.
Yeah. We'll go to you then, Jack. What's your thoughts on those stats overall?
The key stat for West Ham is not having a counter and not having shots from counters. I mean, that's what we do in these kinds of games. And I mean, several times we could have launched counters on you guys and just failed to connect passes, and often simple passes as well. So that's the real disappointing thing from a West Ham perspective, is we did the kind of last line defending job. 2 clearances off the line and stopped you guys from scoring that second goal until really late in the game. And if we had managed to connect 1 or 2 counters, we probably would have scored, because we are very good.
How different was that team to the one that played in February, the West Ham team? Was it still a lot of the same guys?
I imagine, I don't know, obviously don't know off the top of my head, but I imagine Lingard probably would have played I think he did, the big thing, I mean,
because it was a big difference with it. There was a commitment in February. There's a sort of, it looked as though obviously, Moyes changed tack yesterday from. But obviously, say if you're missing a couple of key players, perhaps it makes a big difference to what happened.
It makes it. What we struggle with is we haven't played the 4-4-1-1 very much this season, where you kind of have the midfield disconnected from the front two. And when we do play that, you need the number 10. So Benrahma in this case needs to do things really, really quickly and really accurately. You have so much less time than when we play a 4-2-3-1, because you've got 3 players and much more passing options. And when we played that last season, we only played it when we had Lingard available, because he's the only person who can do things quickly enough to be able to transition us into the final third. Benrahma just couldn't do it, basically. I think it was just too complex and difficult a job, and particularly because you get so many numbers around the ball so quickly. So yeah, just not really being able to connect counters is the crucial thing, and yeah, missing players, missing balance, which doesn't help.
Yeah. And Callum, what's your thoughts on those stats overall?
Yeah. It looks bad, but like you've rightly pointed out, Bernard, that is just kind of City now, and I think a lot of people would have on Twitter yesterday were probably putting too much onus on possession stats, as I think a lot of people do anyway, generally, because realistically, if like you say, our counters had connected and we'd have been more lethal, like we have been, like we've won games where we've had like 40% possession, less than that, just because we counter so effectively. And if we did that yesterday, then it could have been a completely different story. But yeah, it's not too demoralizing or anything when, like you say, you look at City versus PSG and the numbers are really quite similar. So it's like, well, is that the level we're at? Then great. But yeah, Jack's rightly pointed out the biggest issue is that the sort of number 10 sort of shadow strikery type one that links up those counters when we do play the 4-4-1-1. And I think Benrahma yesterday had something like 67% passing accuracy, when if you're counting on him to be that link, you can't have a player in there that's messing up 1 in 3 of his passes. Like it's just not going to happen. And then Lanzini came on and played half the number of minutes, but actually managed to make more successful passes than Benrahma did in 60 minutes. So I think, yeah, he's got to be knocking on the door now, I'd imagine. But again, it's impossible to hypothesize because we don't know what system we're going to play in the next game. So making any judgments is kind of pointless. That's just for Moyes and the coaches to do. But yeah, not too shocking when you put it into context of just City being this dominant force. Yeah, not too disappointing.
Yeah. Then the attack momentum graph looked like this. More periods than normally for the opposition.
Yeah, say that's good, that, guys. Don't worry. I mean, that's good compared to some we've seen, definitely.
Well, you can see the bit after Lanzini came on.
Yeah.
What happened in a different 10?
Yeah, so it was mostly City. Of course, West Ham had a couple of periods throughout the game, but as I said before, I've seen worse definitely this season. Wouldn't you agree, Bernard?
Yeah, remember Everton last week? I think there was one little thing under the line. I think in the whole game, you know, that was bad.
Yeah. We'll go to you then, Jack. Do you think that graph represents the game as well?
Well, yeah, like a sort of quip. You can see the difference when we have a 10 connecting passes, and the fact that we're able to then connect some things in the final third. Before then, there's only a couple of patches where we were able to get through. The only thing it doesn't come up on that graph is I do think we played the first 10 minutes quite well. I thought we matched the intensity that you brought in the first 10 minutes, but obviously that doesn't appear there. I think that's partly because a couple of things that probably is measured on is actually shots on goal, and I can remember 2 or 3 attacks in the first 10 minutes where we didn't actually have a shot, but got crosses into the box, and then it was
it was the first half when he brought Antonio. That was it when Laporte brought Antonio when he was sort of on near the box, wasn't he? That was first half, wasn't it? I mean, that could have been an opportunity, obviously, if Laporte hadn't brought him down. So those sort of things don't show anywhere. Possibility something might have happened from there, you know. So yeah, stats, isn't it? Stats are stats. So there you go.
Yeah. We'll go to you then, Callum. Do you think that graph represents the game?
Yeah. As you've said, I'm sure that's what the graph looks like pretty much every week as a City fan, which must be quite fun. But yeah, there's not much more to say other than yes, like it definitely does. I think the other guys have rightly pointed out there's definitely things that aren't reflected in that, and I do think that we opened up quite positively. I would agree with that. But just as I'm sure you guys find most weeks, there's probably teams that come out and try to match the intensity, and that's probably where this tiredness comes up, is because 15 minutes in, they're like, oh no, this is actually really intense. I can't do this for 90 minutes. And then you have to change tactics and try and then it's almost attritional, isn't it, with City? They kind of like play with you, and then once they grind you down, then they'll find the holes and pick you apart. And that's why you're so successful, because there's very, very few teams that can match that level.
We'll go through player by player then. We'll start with West Ham. In goal was Fabianski, 6 saves, 5 saves from inside the box, 36 touches, 50% accurate passes, 7 out of 22 long balls were accurate. We'll go to you first, Jack. How do you think Fabianski played?
So that's sort of a classic Fabianski performance, really. It's sort of typical Fabianski in the sense that does his job from a goalkeeping perspective, but not the best distribution-wise. So failing to connect long balls forward is kind of one of the key issues that we have with him, but a really great goalkeeping performance. And one of the things actually that was impressive was him coming off his line to sharply. I've nicked that off you, haven't I? I'm sorry.
That was my point.
Nicked that off you. But yeah, go on, Cal. You can.
No, that was it. No, basically the same. Shot stopping solid. He's always been, well, at least for us, he's always been a good shot stopper. I think before us, he was renowned for being the opposite of that. But he's been solid for us. But yeah, his coming off the line is something that I would never really have associated with him over the past few seasons, to be honest. And coming out and claiming crosses and stuff like that as well, it was always a bit sketchy. But there was one moment in particular that stood out where he came bounding off his line, and it was actually offside in the end, and he was fuming at the lino because he must have run like 30 odd yards off his goal line to clear the ball that he didn't even need to come out for. And had he got injured or something in the process, then that would have been fairly problematic. But yeah, it's nice. And we talked about this on the podcast the other day. I think the almost like a flame lit underneath Fabianski with the arrival of Areola that's kind of just when we all thought he was starting to sort of reach lower levels of performance with his age as he got older, he's kind of just been rejuvenated now that we've got a really good quality backup. Because I think before I'm sure he didn't rest on his laurels, so to speak, but he knew that there wasn't really any threat coming from the squad because all of the goalkeepers we had were considerably worse than him. So he would really have to drop a clanger to be dropped.
Not
whereas
allowed
now
to say things like that about David Martin.
He's a cult hero. But yeah, like now I think he's very aware that the performance level has to be much higher for him to keep a hold on that number one. And to be fair, he's stepped up to the plate this season and he's managed to pull out some brilliant performances. And yeah, just looking at those numbers, I mean, 6 saves. It could have been far worse had he not been on good form.
Yeah. Next up then is right back Ben Johnson. 2 clearances, 2 block shots, 1 clearance from off the line, one ground duel was 1 out of 3, 2 aerial duels 1 out of 3, 19 times he lost the possession, 1 foul, 55 touches, 69% accurate passes, 1 key pass, 1 out of 4 crosses were accurate, and 1 out of 1 dribble attempts was successful, with 6 long balls attempted, none of them being accurate. We'll go to you first then, Jack. Thoughts on Ben Johnson's performance?
He's a great defender, and I'm really impressive actually for his age to be able to hold his own, and has done a number of times now actually against Man City. Some of his better performances defensively have always come against you guys, but as is kind of shown in those stats, losing the ball a little bit too frequently, and it really doesn't help to have lost the kind of way we play out from the back on the left, and then to be playing Ben Johnson on the right, who we all love, but doesn't really have the same range of pass that Soufal has. So we kind of the ball just gets stuck in the back four quite a lot now, and then you end up going long. So I'm reticent to. Or reluctant, sorry, to criticize Ben Johnson because he's doing the job that he's being asked to do, but he's just not necessarily offering enough going forward at the moment.
Yeah. And Callum, how do you think Ben Johnson played?
Yeah, spot on. I hadn't actually seen his numbers yet, to be honest. They were actually worse than I thought. But I think, yeah, like Jack's rightly pointed out, there's something that Soufal offers that he doesn't, and that's attacking output, basically. Carrying that ball up the right hand side, and his end product is considerably better. His passing and crossing, and like you say, if we've kind of not sacrificed but unfortunately lost some output on the left hand side because of Ogbona's injury, and then what that means for Cresswell's output, you kind of need to offset that or they need to at least probably be thinking about offsetting that by bringing in a more attacking fullback on the right hand side, because at the minute we've lost impact on the left and on the right because Johnson is very much a defensive fullback, and in a counter-attacking system that we play, a lot of emphasis has to be on those overlaps and stuff, and undercuts from the inside forwards, getting into some dangerous positions as well. And at the minute, it just looks like that's part of our attack that is being stifled somewhat.
Yeah. Next up then is Craig Dawson at centre back for West Ham.
Jack's boy.
7 clearances, 2 block shots, 2 interceptions, 1 tackle, 1 out of 1 ground duels were 1, 3 out of 5 aerial duels were 1, 12 times he lost the possession, 50 touches, 71% accurate passes, 3 out of 10 long balls were accurate. We'll go to you first then, Jack. Thoughts on Craig Dawson's performance?
Well, he can't pass, but he's like a cheap James Tarkowski. So, gets rid of the ball really well, wins all of his headers, tends to win his ground duels quite well, and then just loses the ball every time he gets it. So that's just classic Craig Dawson performance. Did a good job, really. I mean, especially against City, it's really hard to deal with all the rotations. He's not necessarily great on the turn, but I thought he did really well in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and to you, Callum, thoughts on Craig Dawson's performance?
Yeah, solid enough. Like you say, you kind of get what you pay for with Craig Dawson. He's no world beater. He's not gonna do anything spectacular. but like you say, coming up against the opposition he did, and the task that was asked of him, I think he performed fairly admirably. I know there are definite question marks hanging over his head at the minute with regards to does he get dropped for Diop and sort of add a bit more. That's another thing we probably will explore, like we've constantly said about trying to bring Cresswell back into the game, and having a naturally left-sided centre back in that team is probably going to do the world of good, because at the minute we're sacrificing Zuma's performance levels by asking him to play in an unfamiliar position just to let Craig Dawson play in his natural position. Whereas I think really Zuma's better than Dawson, so you probably want to get optimum version of Zuma rather than optimum version of Dawson, in my opinion.
Moyes loves Craig as much as I do.
So well, that's it. Moyes is a sucker for a brutish centre half. But I mean, you've got Zuma, who's as brutish as it comes. But yeah, I don't know. A good performance, not an amazing performance, but it's Craig Dawson. So what do you expect?
Yeah. Next up then is Kurt Zouma. 4 clearances, 2 interceptions, 1 out of 2 aerial duels were won. 3 times he lost a possession. 38 touches, 90% accurate passes. None out of 2 long balls were accurate. We'll go to you first, Jack. Thoughts on Zuma's performance?
Well, he's quite clearly the better centre back, isn't he? So, yeah, he did a good job. And the same thing again, stunts his output with his passing when you play him on the left. Does much better on the right. So yeah, you don't get the same kind of balls into Antonio that you might get if he was playing on the right, or balls that break the lines. But yeah, both of them were really good defensively. I don't think he got a mistake out of either of them throughout the whole game, which is impressive, especially with Dawes, who's kind of mistake prone. So yeah, impressive defensive performances. Like I said right at the start, the last line performed really well in terms of defending, just didn't really offer very much on the ball.
Yeah, and to you, Callum, thoughts on Zuma's performance?
Yeah, pretty much the exact same. Quite actually a bit less involved than we might have come to expect. But like Jack says, that's kind of that's just a consequence of him playing on that left side, where he by default is less involved. Almost tactically, I guess, because you don't want to involve him too much, because you know that you're asking him to do something he's not that comfortable with. So
give the ball away. So
yeah, exactly. But I think it bodes well the fact that he's still churning out 90% pass accuracy on the side of the pitch that he's less comfortable with. So when you do get him on that right side, and I don't know, come January, maybe we bring in a more comfortable ball playing left-sided centre back, that could open up a whole new realm of build-up play, hopefully, for us, please.
Yeah. The final defender at left back was Aaron Cresswell. It was only on the pitch for 61 minutes, 4 clearances, 1 blocked shot, 1 interception. 3 times he lost a possession. He was offside once. 26 touches, 94% accurate passes. 1 out of 3 crosses were accurate. 2 out of 2 long balls were accurate, and 1 shot blocked. We'll go to you again then, Jack. Thoughts on Cresswell's performance?
Played well. Again, just really struggling to get the ball into him. I mean, you can see how consistent a passer he is. He's much more consistent than the rest of the back four, 94%, compared to, well, I can't remember what Johnson's was, but somewhere in the 60s, I think.
60 something, yeah.
Yeah, you can see the balance is hugely shifted to the left side in terms of us passing out the back. When we just struggled to get the ball to him, he didn't have many touches, as you saw from that. But good at the back again. Long term being criticised for not being a very good defender, but he's playing very well in there at the moment, and just really hoping that the knock he sustained won't keep him out for the Brighton game, because we will really miss him if he's not fit for that.
Yeah, he took one for the team there, especially. You got to do that sometimes as a defender. We'll go to you then, Callum. Thoughts on Cresswell's performance?
Yeah, solid enough. Again, it's always going to be tricky coming up against City with some of the players you've got in your attack. But yeah, I thought while he was on the pitch, defended admirably. I think just looking at those numbers, the only one that stands out is the volume of passes. Like, I think generally you'd expect to see a much higher number, even though he was only on the pitch for 60 minutes. But that's just evidence of the inability to involve him in our attack now that Ogbonna's not there, and something we really need to address sharpish. And yeah, I'm just hoping that the knock was more precautionary or an impact thing that he's going to have walked off by now. Because if we don't have him for Brighton, the options are not great. Because I want us to play in a back four, and Masuaku cannot play in a back four. And then we'd be forced to put Johnson at left back, who's not left-footed, and yeah, it's just all kinds of problems. As such as having a tiny squad, but that's the way Moyes likes it.
Yeah. Into midfield then, we'll go to you, Jack, for Thomas Soucek. 40 touches, 70% accurate passes, none out of 1 crosses were accurate, 1 shot off target, 1 out of 1 dribble attempts were successful, 5 out of 10 ground duels were won, 4 out of 7 aerial duels were won, 10 times he lost the possession, 3 fouls, 1 interception, 4 tackles, and he was dribbled past once. Thoughts on Soucek's performance, Jack?
Steady. I mean, he's doing a good job in there this season. He's being asked to do a quite different job. He's not hitting the box as much. We're not crossing as much. So it's a different role for him to the one that he played for quite a lot of last season. But I think he's become a bit of a fall guy for our fans, and takes a lot of flack every week. Just because he's not scoring, and I think that's what our fans have come to associate with him. But as a defensive midfielder, he's pretty steady and continues to do a kind of 6.5 to 7 out of 10 performance week in, week out. So solid.
Yeah, and Callum, thoughts on Soucek's performance?
Yeah, same. Just consistently ticks over with some, just steady performances. I think the only number there that probably I would like to see an improvement on is the 70% passing accuracy, but he's not renowned for being an incredible passer. But I mean, everyone wants a midfielder that can pass the ball well, right? It's kind of an essential. But yeah, he breaks up the play well. He knows positionally he's pretty good. He knows where to be at the moment, depending on who's in possession and stuff like that. But yeah, again, nothing stand out, but from a defensive midfielder, probably good, because if he stood out for doing something terrible, you'd be a bit more upset. So
yeah. Then his midfield partner, Declan Rice. Next up, 57 touches, 95% accurate passes, 1 out of 2 long balls were accurate, 1 shot on target, 2 out of 2 dribble attempts were successful, 6 out of 8 ground duels were won, 1 out of 1 aerial duels were won, 8 times he lost the possession, 1 interception, 4 tackles, and he was dribbled past once. We'll go to you first, Jack. Thoughts on Rice's performance?
Just great. I mean, he's pretty much been great for the whole season so far. A bit of a carry job here in terms of getting us forward, because everyone else was struggling in that respect, and he did a quite good job, even when I think he looked pretty knackered in the last 20 minutes and still was really driving us forward. Yeah, I mean, he's having an outstanding season and is an outstanding football player. So even today, when maybe he's not at his best because players around him aren't buying him the same amount of time, he's not got the passing options that he has in other games, still stands out as by far the strongest performer in the team.
Yeah, and Callum, thoughts on Declan Rice's performance?
Yeah. I mean, I think like we've said, I think everyone has pretty much come around to the fact now that he is a pretty elite footballer, and even on a day where our team perhaps didn't reach the heights that we've expected and didn't perform at the level we usually do, he still stands out. 95 pass completion, very good. 75% of his defensive duels won, very good. Both the dribbles attempted, he's done successfully, great. And I think it was clear to see how instrumental he is to us in every facet of the game. There was one moment, I think, towards the end where we just were having no luck breaking through City's lines with passes, so he just took it upon himself to basically run all the way up the pitch. I think he got to the byline in the end and then just couldn't squeeze the cross in, and ended up, I think, throwing some snow at some City fans, which I thought was quite funny. But I think that's it. Like, he's got that in his locker. I think for a long time he didn't really get the respect I think he deserved, and understandably, because not everyone watched him 90 minutes of every game of every season like we do. But I think now people are starting to see that he isn't just like a deep lying sit-in midfielder. Like, he can carry that ball up the pitch. He won 100% of his dribbles. So like he's good in every area. And I mean, yeah, obviously we want to keep him at the club for as long as possible, but who knows how that's going to pan out. I'm afraid I'm going to have to excuse myself in 5 minutes because I'm volunteering at a youth centre at 6, so I need to get there quickly.
No worries.
But that's fine. I can do a couple more players. That's fine.
Yeah. Next up then, Pablo Fornals on the right. 51 touches, 88% accurate passes, 1 key pass, none out of 1 crosses were accurate, 2 out of 3 long balls were accurate. 2 out of 4 dribble attempts were successful, 6 out of 10 ground duels were won, 1 out of 2 aerial duels were won. 10 times he lost the possession. He was fouled twice, 1 offside, 2 interceptions, 2 tackles, and he was dribbled past once. We'll go to you first, Jack. Thoughts on Fornal's performance?
Not been so good the last few weeks. He's had a bit of a weird couple of weeks. He went away with Spain, and then his partner gave birth to their first child. So I think he's been quite busy off the pitch. And knowing Moyes, Moyes has got a real track record for letting players out of training if they've got personal stuff going on. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's had a few days off as well. And also with all the system changing, him moving around, I think it's quite difficult. It's quite a difficult little period for him. Not at his best. Didn't really stand out for doing anything bad, which is quite good when someone's really struggling for form. So we were okay down that side, but didn't offer as much as we might be used to seeing from him going forward.
Yeah, and Callum, thoughts on Fornal's performance?
Yeah, pretty much the same. He started the season really strong, and I think his performances in the last couple of games have been subpar, or at least by the standards we've come to expect of him. I do feel obviously he's been very busy off the pitch, but I also feel for him in a bit because at the minute I think he's become a bit of a utility man for Moyes. Like he trusts him implicitly, so Moyes has no problems asking him to do. Oh, can you do this job? Oh, can you do this job? And he's kind of the guy that he relies upon. So he gets moved around and has to do quite a lot of different stuff fairly frequently, which I guess. On the one side is a positive in the sense that it's nice that Moyes trusts him so much, but it also makes it difficult for him to really find a groove in a game if he's being constantly asked to do different things. But yeah, I didn't think I actually thought he was worse against Wolves. He was very disappointing in that match, and he's picked up his performance level from that game against a much stronger opposition as well. So nothing too much to worry about, but I think his numbers were pretty poor attacking wise, but I think that was more of a team issue that we just couldn't get. Usually where he comes into his own is in the final third and occupying dangerous spaces in the box and making late runs and playmaking and stuff. But we didn't even get into that position of the pitch yesterday against you guys. We couldn't break into that final third, so he was kind of redundant in that sense. He didn't have the opportunities to do those things that he's so good at.
Just to emphasise that point as well, in the last few weeks about him moving around, he played the first half against Liverpool as a 10, then the second half as a central midfielder, part of that as a defensive midfielder, then on the left against Wolves with a wing back, so playing in a sort of inside forward position on the left, and then here on the right for 60 minutes or 70 minutes, and then out to the left as a left midfielder rather than a left winger. So it's been a different position every 30, 40 minutes across the last 3 games for him.
Literally.
Tough job.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah.
Right, boys, I'm gonna have to disappear because I've got to run. But thanks for having us on, and everyone take care of yourselves.
Have a good evening,
Callum.
well.
See you later.
See you in a bit. We'll go to you then, Jack.
Carry
again.
job now.
All by yourself now. You got Callum no longer to rely on. Next up is Ben Rama.
You always go to him first anyway, so he's not relying on him.
It's in the order they joined, so Jack was in here. Jack was in here first, to be fair. He was early. So Ben Rama is next up. 59 minutes played, 21 touches, 67% accurate passes. None out of 3 crosses were accurate. 1 shot on target. 1 out of 1 dribble attempts was successful. 1 out of 4 ground duels were won. None out of 1 aerial duels were won. 10 times he lost the possession and he was dribbled past twice. Thoughts on Ben Rama's performance, Jack?
stats kind of speak for themselves. Do you need me to say very much? Yeah, didn't do a good job at all. A little bit of an unfamiliar role, which I don't think he's getting enough credit for. It's tough to be shifted into that kind of playing as a second striker thing, particularly against Man City. You have such little time on the ball. But yeah, just poor. Lost the ball way too much. Did do a good job in the first sort of 30, 40 minutes of pressing Rodri. I thought you didn't get the ball into Rodri as much as you usually do, which forced you wide quite a lot. In the first half an hour. But yeah, dribble past twice as well as kind of a stat you don't want to see for that position in the team. So yeah, not at his best at all. And I would not be surprised one bit if he doesn't play the next match and Lanzini comes in ahead of him.
Yeah, it was a good goal by Lanzini as well. We'll get to him later. Next up then is Masuaku on the left-hand side. 74 minutes he was on the pitch, 34 touches, 86% accurate passes, none out of 3 crosses were accurate, 1 out of 2 long balls were accurate, 1 out of 2 dribble attempts were successful, 3 out of 4 ground duels were won, 1 out of 2 aerial duels were won, 10 times he lost the possession, 1 interception and 2 tackles. Thoughts on Masuaku's performance?
Not horrible going forward, but the main reason he was put in was to allow us to drift into a back 5 when you get the ball wide, so he can be an extra man from crosses. So Cresswell can filter in to be an extra centre back, and then Masuaku can tidy up anything that comes to the back stick. And if that's the reason he was put into the team, then he did go completely missing at doing that job for the first goal, because Mahrez is in acres of space out there as Cresswell's filtered into centre back, and Masuaku's just not bothered to cover in at left wing back. And I think you could hear just about on the telly David Moyes shouting at him saying, "That's your job." So the whole reason he was put into the team was to stop that from happening, and he failed to do that. So I think you have to say that's a bit of a failed performance. And again, another one. I think Benrahma may be dropped next week, and I think Masuaku very likely will be dropped midweek against Brighton.
Yeah, and the final starter, Michail Antonio up top. He was on the pitch for 90 minutes. 1 out of 3 dribble attempts were successful. 30 touches, 58% accurate passes. 1 out of 1 long balls were accurate. 5 out of 11 ground duels were won. None out of 1 aerial duels were won. 16 times he lost a possession. 1 foul. He was fouled 3 times. 1 offside and 1 tackle. Thoughts on Antonio's performance?
One of his weakest this season. Really struggled to keep hold of the ball, and didn't use his body as well as we're used to seeing. Sometimes when he's really struggling, he just throws himself around a bit and gets into a game that way, and that didn't really happen here either. So not at his best at the moment. Just going through a patch of poor form. But I think, I mean, I probably talked about it far too much really already, but there's the balance issue is affecting everyone, and it's throwing off lots of players in different ways. And just the way we get the ball into him is completely different at the moment. He's being asked he does run the channels a lot, but he's being asked to do that for most of the service that comes into him now. So just not functioning as it usually would for him. And yeah, his performance is suffering as a result. So yeah, we'll have to see if he can pick up in midweek, hopefully with a little bit more support around him.
Yeah. On to the substitutes now. First one is Lanzini. Scored West Ham's goal. He was on the pitch for 31 minutes, 23 touches, 95% accurate passes. 1 out of 1 long balls were accurate. 1 shot on target. 1 out of 1 dribble attempts were successful. 3 out of 5 ground duels were won. He lost the possession once, 1 foul, 1 offside. He was tackled twice and was dribbled past once. Thoughts on Lanzini's performance when he was on the pitch?
Only played 30 minutes, but probably our second best player behind Rice. Changed the game, really. I know you scored in that period as well, but in terms of us actually keeping hold of the ball and causing any kind of issue going the other way, that all happened after Lanzini came on and playing that role. I mean, we spoke about before the stats came up, but 67% pass success for Benrahma compared to what was it, 95 for Lanzini is. You see the difference, and just having someone who can control our tempo well. Gets back, is actually quite useful defensively too, and generally always keeps hold of the ball, rarely ever loses it, is a massive plus. And then the man only scores bangers. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him score a simple goal. So, you know, there's another one to add to the end of season highlight reel for Manu, another absolute screamer.
Yeah. Next up then is Vladimir Kufal. He was on the pitch for 29 minutes, 1 clearance, 1 out of 1 ground duels were won, 3 times he lost the possession, 17 touches, 77% accurate passes, 1 key pass, 2 out of 3 long balls were accurate, and 1 out of 1 dribble attempts were successful. Thoughts on Kufal's performance?
Really impressive. Right footer on the left side, doesn't have a left foot at all. So did a really, really good job. And again, same with Lanzini, one that's very likely to come in. The two that are likely to be dropped, Ben Rama and Masuaku, and probably Sufal and Lanzini are the ones that will come in. So yeah, he's really recovering his form. He struggled at the start of the season, had a outstanding performance against Rapid Vienna midweek before this one, and then a really nice cameo off the bench. So probably come back into the first team on the back of that.
Yeah, and the final sub before we go through the City players was Jared Bowen. He was on the pitch for 16 minutes. None out of 1 dribble attempts were successful. 16 touches, 88% accurate passes. None out of 2 crosses were accurate. 1 out of 1 long balls were accurate. 2 out of 4 ground duels were won. 6 times he lost the possession. He was fouled twice. He didn't have time to make much difference to the game, to be honest, did he?
No, poor Sword must be knackered. I mean, he has to do all of Antonio's work in Europe because Antonio gets rested for all of those games and he goes up front for all of those matches. And then he's asked to be a really high impact, energetic right winger in the league as well. So, yeah, I think he looks a little bit tired at the moment. I think he'll benefit hugely from Sufal coming back in at right back because he likes to dribble inside off the right, and having someone that's going to keep going beyond him will draw some players away from him and give him a little bit more room to work in. So, yeah, one that I think will come back in again midweek, and yeah, didn't have much time to impact this one, but hopefully we'll be able to do much better against Brighton.
Yeah, and the final point, how do you think David Moyes did yesterday with the team selection?
Right decision to play 4-4-1-1. On paper, it was the right thing to do to bring Masuaku in, mainly because of the impact that your fullbacks tend to have and how high up the pitch they tend to get. Didn't disagree with any of the substitutions, thought they were all correct. My only issue was not in the final 20 minutes. I thought he should have switched Ben Johnson and Sufal and let Sufal go onto the right side, particularly in the period where Bowen was on the pitch. And I think we may have not scored the second, may have not conceded the second if he'd done that, which would have given us a chance at nicking a draw. Which we definitely didn't deserve, but we may have nicked on the day. But overall, pretty good. I think he's having a really tough time to redress the balance of the team without Ogbonna. He's trying some things, they're not quite working, but I like the ideas. And hopefully he can settle on something that works for the team as soon as possible. He's getting a lot of opportunity to experiment now. I mean, there's so many fixtures, he should get a chance to find something eventually.
Yeah, we're getting into Christmas time. This is when the season's full of fixtures, 2 or 3 games each week coming up. Yeah. We'll go to City then. First of all, the keeper, Ederson. 2 saves, 1 punch, 2 high claims, 48 touches, 94% accurate passes, 4 out of 6 long balls were accurate, 1 clearance, 1 tackle, 1 out of 1 ground duels were won, 1 out of 1 aerial duels were won. Thoughts on Ederson's performance, Bernard?
Yeah, I mean, apart from trying to keep warm, that was his main problem, I think, yesterday, wasn't it? I mean, he made a good, like a save down to his left. In one of their halves, I can't remember what. I think he did a punched out from Declan Rice. I think Declan Rice effort. I thought he might have caught that one. To be honest, he doesn't usually punch in front of him like, it doesn't usually fall into that trap of these sort of European goalies that sort of, even though it's straight at them, they end up punching it out. It doesn't usually do that, so that was an unusual one. But then again, the snow was coming, obviously with the weather. Perhaps he didn't see it so well. So yeah, it was just a bog standard game for him, wasn't it? I mean, nothing bad, nothing good, just a steady game for Ederson. Nothing special. He didn't have to really do anything special, did he? Let's be honest about it.
He dealt well with our corners. I mean, we're a huge threat from set pieces, and we put 2 blockers on the keeper, and he just shoved people out the way and got
Well,
out.
yeah, because that's one of his weaknesses. Actually, to be honest with you, he's not great at coming for balls. But as you say, Stefan's far better at coming for crosses and stuff like that. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I thought the defence played quite well. I thought the guys around him. And a couple of the corners were a bit short. I thought, I think he hit the first man, didn't he? A couple of them. But as you said, yeah, he doesn't. If it's in the 6-yard box, he's got a chance. Obviously, he doesn't come out any further than that. But yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Mohammed in the comments has said thoughts on the last-minute goal for West Ham. I think it was a very good goal, but it was basically the last kick of the game, weren't it?
Yeah.
So it didn't really mean much. I saw Edison wasn't happy with it because he lost his clean sheet, but that's about it, really.
Well, the thing is as well, Guy, I mean, obviously from a City point of view, from a team point of view, for a change, our goal difference isn't as high as Liverpool's and Chelsea's, so which is unusual. City usually have a better goal difference than everyone, but obviously we're struggling this year, so it was a bit more annoying because of that. We could have done with a nice 2 goals as opposed to 1 goal, and that's what. Not just from Edison's point of view, but City fans as well. Because we do, it may come down to that. It may come down to goal difference. We've been there before, and we, West Ham sort of did one on us there by getting that goal back. So that might count against us in the long run. You never know. West Ham might have denied us the title. You never know, mate.
That'd be West Ham's claim to fame. Really, next up then is Kyle Walker, the former Tottenham man. 1 clearance, 2 bloody hell, 2 tackles, 3 out of 6 ground duels were won, 1 out of 2 aerial duels were won. 16 times he lost the possession. He was fouled once, 114 touches, 88% accurate passes, 5 out of 9 long balls were accurate. 1 shot off target, and none out of 1 dribble attempts was successful. Thoughts on Walker's performance?
Yeah, I thought Cresswell would come into your room then when I went that for a moment when you went a bit high pitched there, mate. Yeah, no, Walker didn't have a lot to do defensively, but he was always there if needed. He's got his pace, of course, where we need him, but it was a bit more dangerous going up. But again, he didn't. Nothing really came off. He was on the front foot all the time, but I don't remember him particularly setting anything up or anything like that. But yeah, Walker's Walker. He didn't do anything wrong. I was quite happy with his performance. Yeah, and I think the counters. I think it was the reason why West Ham struggled a bit was people like Walker were just sort of clamping down, in that midfield area as well. So I think he was part and parcel of that.
Yeah. Next up then is Ruben Diaz at centre back. 3 clearances, 2 tackles, 2 out of 4 ground duels were won, 2 out of 3 aerial duels were won. 9 times he lost the possession, 2 fouls, 99 touches, 90% accurate passes, 6 out of 8 long balls were accurate, and 1 shot blocked. Thoughts on Diaz's performance?
Yeah, I thought he had to cover a bit for Laporte after obviously that foul and getting booked. So obviously he had to sort of step up. Those stats don't particularly show that as much as I thought they might do, actually, because obviously Laporte had to rein in a little bit. He didn't want to take it. Obviously, it was quite early in the game. He got booked, wasn't it? It was only midway through the first half, I think. So I think Ruben was expected to step up and protect him then, because Laporte was a bit tentative, and I thought he did a great job of that. As is usually, I'm at the centre halves as a unit. I think they work well together, but not yesterday. It was just Diaz who was holding up his end, and we'll get onto Laporte in a minute, obviously. But yeah, he was asked to do sort of 1.5 men's jobs yesterday, I think, from about the 20th minute.
Yeah, and then nicely leading into Laporte there. 1 clearance, 2 block shot, 2 interceptions, 1 tackle, 2 out of 3 ground duels were won, 1 out of 2 aerial duels were won. 6 times he lost the possession, 1 foul. He was fouled once, 97 touches, 93% accurate passes, 3 out of 4 long balls were accurate, 1 shot off target, and he hit a woodwork once. Thoughts on Laporte's performance?
Yeah, it's funny looking at those stats. It's not that I didn't think they were that much worse than Rubens. To be honest with you, there's not a lot of difference, but it's amazing, isn't it? What they show you, because he was definitely reining it in once he got that book in. Is it Ben Rama and when he did sort of go at him, he was struggling a bit. I don't think he coped with the conditions a lot. Most of the City players did. Most of the City players rose the game. You know, they actually played far better when the snow started pouring down, especially that first half. And I think Laporte struggled with that. I think he probably made up for it a little bit in the second half based on those stats, because the first half he wasn't really at the game, wasn't really at it in the first half. But they say he was probably the only guy who didn't sort of cope on the City team with conditions yesterday, to be honest with you. And obviously the guy who's the big guy up front, I forgot his name, Antonio. I think I say when he fouled him, I mean, it was cynical at the end of the day. It wasn't obviously a red card, but he thoroughly deserved it. But he had to rein in after that. So I was a bit disappointed with Laporte, because let's face it, you know me, I like John Stones and Diaz as a partnership. I'm not, I like Laporte, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's gone up in Pep's estimations there. I think he's left the door open again for Mr. Stones to step back in. So that's all good for me anyway. I don't mind that.
Yeah. Next up then is left back João Cancelo. 2 clearances, 2 interceptions, 2 tackles. He was dribbled past twice. 5 out of 9 ground duels were won. 4 out of 8 aerial duels were won. 20 times he lost a possession. 1 foul, was fouled once. 114 touches, 85% accurate passes, 2 key passes. None out of 5 crosses were accurate. 5 out of 9 long balls were accurate. 2 shots on target, and 2 out of 3 dribble attempts were successful. Thoughts on Cancelo's performance?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of guys thought he had a fantastic game, but those obviously he doesn't play as a left back. We know that, don't we? He's not. We don't class him as a left back now. He's a midfielder. It's as simple as that. So he's gonna try things that don't come off, and we know that. And I mean, I think the guy in the Manchester Evening News give him 9 out of 10. I don't know where he got 9 out of 10 from, to be honest with you. I mean, I give him about 7, I think, at most, because I give a standard 6.5 out of 10 to every player yesterday anyway. But it was all right. It's smooth. I think he set up Mahrez for that effort. That was he?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he passed it across, didn't he? He set
his switch of play to Mahrez and set up the first, right?
So that's what he's capable of doing. He tried a couple of his outside of the boot ones, though, that he did the other week. Oh, come on, mate. You could do it, but don't try and do it all the time. That annoyed me a little bit, I must admit. But he was all right. As I said, as a defender, if you look at those stats, not very good, but he's not really a defender now. He's just more attacking midfielder.
Yeah. Mohammed has asked, does City need a new centre-back, Bernard? And if so, who?
No. We've got 3 excellent centre-backs and a good backup as well in Aki. So, I mean, we've got 3 quality centre-backs. Laporte, nothing wrong with Laporte. He does make mistakes, but, I mean, what centre-back doesn't? We've got one playing for England who makes mistakes game in, game out across the road, So, no, they've got 3 great centre-backs and they've got Aki as well, which, I'm not saying he's not great, but he's a good backup for the 3 guys. No, we certainly don't need a centre back at the moment.
No, it's us. Yeah. We need a new centre back.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if that was aimed to. I think he should have put West Ham instead of City in the next up then is Rodri in midfield. 88 touches, 95% accurate passes, 3 out of 3 long balls were accurate. 1 out of 2 dribble attempts were successful. 5 out of 6 ground duels were won. 2 out of 2 aerial duels were won. Only 5 times he lost the possession in the whole 90. 1 interception and 4 tackles. Thoughts on Rodri's performance?
Yeah, I mean, for a big lad, I mean, you think in those conditions, the bigger lads struggle, don't you? You always think that's going to happen. He didn't. I mean, Rodri's just Rodri. I mean, I think obviously we talk about this Declan Rice on the pitch, and obviously if Rodri hadn't upped his game like he seems to have done this year, obviously there were the rumours and things of obviously get to the top. They want Declan Rice, don't we? Want Declan Rice, but I think that's put put the nail in that now, because obviously he's not going to have Rodri and Declan Rice in the same team. So West Ham fans can be happy that I don't think we'll be desperate or trying at this moment to take your boy from you. And he's a quality player, Declan Rice, of course he is. But you never know. He's an England player, which is good as well, isn't it? But Rodri is just having a great season. I mean, he just amazes me, because I thought it was bang average last year, and all of a sudden, it might not last, but he looks smooth. Consider the conditions. I think the West Ham guys are pretty good. They gave him a good test yesterday. I think they did okay against him, but Rodri came out of it, pretty well. So I'm well happy with his performance overall. You say when you're playing, you can't expect for him to dominate midfields like West Ham, because I mean there's some good players in there, and all right, they didn't quite click yesterday, but I thought Rodri. I like it when Rodri plays these better teams, with better players, because and he has a good game, because it just convinces me more and more that he is the future. He is the future, because we'll talk about Fernandinho later, but. Obviously, he's had his day now. But the poor lad, we love him to bits. But Rodri's the man now.
I think you could see his quality. I mean, you talked about the bit where the snow started really coming down in the first half, and that was the bit where we couldn't really stop the supply into him. And once he's able to turn the ball, it's just like, you're buggered. There's nothing.
You just didn't think. I mean, you're just waiting for the ball to stop or something like that, and the ball just kept rolling from player to player, and it got all supply. It was absolutely superb. I mean, you guys are far too young. There was something called the Ballet on Ice in 1967. I don't know if you ever watched it on YouTube, but this wasn't exactly that. But I mean, there was times in that first half when the snow was on the pitch that it was very, very reminiscent of the way they knocked the ball about. It's just superb, absolutely fantastic. And Rodri was key to that.
Yeah. Football United TB Matt has said City need to prepare for the departure of Pep Sunday. Who would it be if it did happen in the next few years, Bernard?
Well, he's only contracted for another, the end of this year, next year. I mean, in theory, he's saying a lot of nice things about the fans now. So he's either softening us up for that he's leaving, or he's actually going to extend. We don't know. I mean, I'm a bit, because he's never said, he doesn't say that many nice things about the fans, but at least the last 2 or 3 weeks, he keeps praising the fans, which is a bit of a worry. What are you doing, Pep? Are you going to drop a bombshell or something like that? You're softening us up for something. But I'm sure the way City the way City do things, the way that the owners do things, I'm sure we're well aware of going forward what we're going to do. Obviously, it won't be Pep, but Pep's unique, and it's like you can't replace him. But obviously, it's like anything. It's like any footballers go, don't they? Come and go. Sergio went, Vincent Kompany went. How do you replace him? David Silva went. How do you do? You just get on with it, and I'm sure we can leave it to our guys up and on board level, and the boss and everyone to have someone lined up when unfortunately it does happen, and they'll know now whether he's thinking of extending or he's going to go, and they'll be making plans, because that's how it's run at the moment. It's we don't do everything right, of course they don't, but it's run properly now from the owners downwards. They make some mistakes, of course they do. They're not perfect, but I'm not worried. Well, I am worried because we love Pep to bits, but hey, he can't. These things end, don't they? Unfortunately.
Yeah. Next up then is Ilkay Gundogan. We'll just get his stats up. 1 goal, 1 assist, 84 touches. 97% accurate passes, 4 key passes, 1 out of 4 crosses were accurate, 4 out of 4 long balls were accurate, 3 shots on target, 1 shot off target, 2 out of 3 dribble attempts were successful, 1 big chance missed, 5 out of 10 ground duels were won, none out of 1 aerial duels were won, 10 times he lost the possession, 1 foul was fouled once, 2 clearances, 2 tackles, and he was dribbled past once. Thoughts on Gundogan's performance?
Well, we do. We need Gundogan to step up when KDB's not playing, and we've said that before. And we got a bit of that in the Everton game. We call him the Gundalorian. Old Gundo is our guy, you know. And he did the same yesterday. And it was funny actually because I remember at least 2 occasions in that first half. I was going to myself, "Oh, Gundo, what are you doing?" So he must have done something wrong because I remember me questioning what he did, but. Hey, obviously, at the end of the day, what was good outweighed that. I mean, even that goal he scored. I mean, I don't know. It was like a flick. I mean, it wasn't a back heel, but he sort of just the way he calmly he just flicked it into the goal, and that's what Gundo can do. He doesn't. It's like Bernardo Silva. If you get him in the box, Gundo and him, we can score more goals. But you know, obviously. They're just midfielders, but yeah, I mean, he's playing really well. We've got our Gundalorian back, and I think he steps up when KDB's not there, and he sort of goes back into a little bit of the shadows when KDB comes back. But perhaps we should push him up a bit more and keep him more involved, and I think we will do. I think we'll get the best out of him now. He looks as though he's back in form now.
Yeah. In midfield with him was Bernardo Silva. 78 touches, 89% accurate passes, 2 key passes, 1 out of 3 crosses were accurate, 1 out of 2 long balls were accurate, 1 shot on target, 1 out of 1 dribble attempts were successful, 3 out of 4 ground duels were won, none out of 2 aerial duels were won, 12 times he lost a possession, he was fouled once, 1 offside, and he was tackled once as well. Thoughts on Bernardo's performance?
Yeah, well, he couldn't keep up the 100% pass rate that he got in the last game. You know, he got 100%. Was it against Everton, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Charlie, I mean, absolutely fantastic. He played okay. I mean, it was not his greatest performance. I think there was one move where he turned a couple of West Ham players that was just wonderful. I've seen it back on social media today where I can't remember the 2 West Ham guys right in the centre circle. He just sort of, I think it was in the second half, and he just sort of turned one and then turned around and turned the other, and that's what he goes in circles. He gets players dizzy. That's what he does. He's a bit like David Silva used to do a similar thing. He used to be able to make little turns and take players out and then create something. But yeah, it wasn't his best game, but I mean, it was a pretty good game. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, well, we run out of superlatives for Bernardo, don't we? And he was up for it again yesterday. A great game for him again yesterday.
Yeah. Into the front 3 now, starting with Gabriel Jesus, who was on the right. 2 shots on target, 2 shots blocked, none out of 1 dribble attempts was successful, 1 big chance missed, 48 touches, 79% accurate passes, 2 key passes, none out of 1 crosses were accurate, 1 out of 1 long balls were accurate, none out of 4 ground duels were won, none out of 2 aerial duels were won. 12 times he lost the possession, 1 foul, 1 offside, 1 clearance, and he was dribbled past once. Thoughts on Jesus' performance?
Yeah, it wasn't his greatest, but he was annoying, wasn't he? I mean, he's just a nuisance, and that's what I like about him. If he doesn't play particularly well, if he cocks it up, he'll go back and do something else again, and that's what he did yesterday. Horrible conditions, and as a West Ham player, you don't want players like him buzzing around. You don't need it. You don't need that aggravation. And he's just a pest. He's just a pest in the same way Bernardo can be. He's exactly the same. He just mivers, and the West Ham, you know, it just wears you down. You say like as a team, City wear teams down, but people like Jesus wear players down as well, because you think, oh God, you know, just leave me alone. Let me pass it out. Let me do something without you mivering me. And he was a nuisance. It wasn't his greatest game, but again, he was just a total nuisance. He wouldn't have done any harm to his chances going forward of getting back, you know, as a regular at the moment. I mean, I think he might turn out against Villa on Wednesday night, but yeah, he is a new. I love Gabby to bits. He gets a bit of stick, but he's just a pain. He's just a pain to people, to the opponents, which is great, and he can score goals as well when he gets a chance. Yeah.
Mohammed has asked in the chat, do you think Jesus will ever become a good striker for City?
Well, he does score strikers' goals, but I mean, he's just different. He's just a different guy. He's not a number. He's a number 9 for Brazil, isn't he? But he don't play number 9. He plays on the left wing, doesn't he, Charlie? Yeah. I think for Brazil. Yeah. And we found he was pretty good on the right wing as well. He's just a nuisance. He's like one of these utility forwards. You can just stick him in anywhere, to be honest with you, and he can score your crucial goal at a vital time. But no, he's not a striker, as in typical striker, Aguero mould or all the other guys, Ronaldo or any Vardy or anything like that. He's just a good forward. He's just a good forward player that'll he can bring on as well and make an impact at certain times of the game. I think that's what I like about him. You can play a full game and do a good job, or you can bring him on for 20 minutes and he can do a job and rescue a game or something like that.
Yeah. Matt has said, I think Jesus has played a great part in the team this season. Her false nine moves about left to right, back and forth. Next up is the person who was playing in the false nine position yesterday, Riyad Mahrez. Next up, one shot off target, one shot blocked. None out of one dribble attempts was successful. Hit the woodwork once, one big chance missed. 68 touches, 94% accurate passes. 3 key passes, 1 out of 4 crosses were accurate. 1 out of 5 ground duels were won. None out of 1 aerial duels were won. 10 times he lost the possession. He was fouled once, offside once, 1 block shot, and he was dribbled past 3 times. Thoughts on Mahrez's performance?
Yeah, it's a shame he was offside because he took the goal really well. I don't know how far he was offside, guys. I've not watched the game back or anything like that, but he took that really well, didn't he? But he didn't look right. He'll only look comfortable when he's back out on the right hand side. To be honest with you, he wasn't. He's not happy playing that false nine or whatever up the middle. But you saw that heat map there. Once he's on the right, he's a lot better. But again, not the greatest game from Mahrez. Again, okay, nothing special. And obviously, he set up Gundogan for the goal, didn't he? So hey, if you can get an assist like that, that's perhaps if you get one of the two of them a game, we'll let him off. We'll let him off with that. But not his greatest game. But I don't think he likes that sort of weather. I don't think he's a snowman, to be honest with you, Mahrez. I think he likes it a bit warmer. So it wasn't his best. But hey, he got an assist, so I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah. The final starter was Raheem Sterling. He was on the pitch for 87 minutes, 2 shots off target, none out of 3 dribble attempts successful, 52 touches, 86% accurate passes, 2 key passes, none out of 2 crosses were accurate, 2 big chances created, none out of 7 ground duels were won, 16 times he lost the possession, 1 foul, 1 offside, and he was dribbled past 3 times. Thoughts on Sterling's performance?
Yeah, I thought he played better than those stats show, to be honest with you. I wouldn't say he's back, but he certainly has played better the last 2 or 3 games he's played. But again, in the same way Jesus was a nuisance, I think he caused lots of problems for West Ham, even though obviously not much came of it. Obviously, he kept going, didn't he? You know, Raheem's going to do that. He's going to keep going whatever happens. He's never going to give up, which is great. Again, he's not the same player as Jesus. He's not such a nuisance, but he'll pick up. Someone else will pass him. He'll try and dribble again. I think he had 3. Did you say 3 dribbles he failed with or something like that? But there's a little bit of the old Raheem, but he's I don't know what our West Ham fan thought of him yesterday. I mean, I'd say is for us, we know can be far better, but obviously yesterday it was okay. It was okay. If it was the old Raheem, you would have said, "Oh, he's had a quiet game." But obviously this. Currently, it wasn't a bad game for him, to be honest with you, on recent performances.
I thought we dealt with your front 3 fairly well, but had real problems with the 3 in the middle. And I thought, given your dominance of the ball, particularly in the periods just before halftime and just after halftime, if you'd had a Ferran Torres on the pitch, you may have scored a few more goals.
Yeah, I mean, lost like Everton as well. I mean, with the front 3 worried us there. The front 3 aren't really doing it apart from being a nuisance factor. And that's all they are. They're just a nuisance factor. They're not perhaps doing anything that they should be doing as a front 3. But then again, the front 3 are midfielders. So, apart from Jesus, but I mean, even Sterling is more a winger. I mean, he's not, it's the nuisance factor, the fact of the front 3s. Last time we had Palmer on the pitch as well. It was a nuisance as well and a lot of quality. And that's the thing. It's they all swap and change, so it's all good. It's fantastic, as you say. If you got those 3 in the middle building up, we're going to sneak 1 or 2 goals, and that's what seems to be happening at the moment.
I think the thing is, in terms of like City and going on to challenge with Liverpool to win the league, and also maybe with Chelsea as well. But with the 3 there that played against us, and actually quite a few of them this season, bar Ferran Torres, who I think has been really, really impressive, who was really impressive prior to his injury. You feel that situations are maybe recoverable when you get beyond us. Whereas if Salah gets beyond, or if Mane gets beyond, you just feel that, okay, that's a goal. There's nothing.
City would, if we had just one quality guy like Salah or a fit Aguero in the old days, if we had just one of them in the squad, it would be probably out of sight. It'd be out of sight by January. But say we're just having to cope with what we've got. Interesting point from Mohammed there. Charlie, certainly the second bit about him not getting game time. Well, he can't when he's injured, can he? But he's been injured for 2 months. But there you go. But Torres. Well, if it's true, disgraceful. If it's not true, well, I don't particularly believe it is 100% true. He should be concentrating on getting back and playing football, not worrying about going to another team. But I don't know whether to believe it or not, to be honest with you. But because he's done bits for City. Don't get me wrong, he's had some great games, but he's not established yet. It's not as though he can turn around and say, "Oh yeah, I've done this," So he certainly won't get any love from City fans if it is. All he has to do is come out and say it's not true, but he hasn't. So, and that's the thing. But this is a PR thing, isn't it? Media thing. They don't always do what you expect them to do. So you never know. If he does go to, Barcelona haven't got a pot to piss in, guys, have they? Let's be honest about it. So how this is going to work anyway, I have no idea, because we're not going to do many favours. I know they think they've got buddies on our side, but we're not going to do them. We're a business. We're not going to do them any bloody favours. So I don't know where it's all come from, but hopefully it's just rubbish. But I'd like someone to turn around and say it is rubbish, or whatever.
Yeah. The final player, we only made 1 sub in the match, and it was an effective one. Fernandinho came on and scored. He was only on the pitch for 8 minutes. He was hardly on the pitch when you look at his heat map. 1 goal, five touches, 100% accurate passes. Only 1 pass was made. 1 shot on target. None out of 2 ground duels were won. 3 times he lost the possession, and he was dribbled past once. He was brought on to finish the game, and he did that, didn't he, Bernard?
Well, he did, but he's flipping awful, mate. It was like I've watched him for Brazil, where he's done something great in the old days, and the next minute he makes that game where they got slaughtered. Was it by Germany? I can't remember that game. They got absolutely hammered by some team, Brazil, many, many years ago. I think Fernandinho was culpable for about 4 or 5 of the goals, because he just had an absolute nightmare. And he did that yesterday. Fantastic goal, great goal. But before that, he'd give the ball away in a critical position at 1-0, I think, when he first came on, and West Ham just didn't take advantage of it. And obviously he scores the goal, and then he goes and chests it up for Lanzini to hammer it into the top corner. He lays it. It was an assist. It was an assist by Jesus. He doesn't count, but it was. He chested it up for him, set it up for him, and Lanzini just smacked it in the goal. So, yeah, great goal, fantastic. But those 3 possession lost, 2 of them should have result. Well, 1 did result in a goal, and the other could have done as well. I don't know what he was doing. He did that in an earlier game this season as well, Charlie. I remember. It was a cup game. He came on for about 20 minutes, and he was awful, absolutely terrible. He did everything wrong, but hey, he scored the goal, so we'll let him off. But no, not very good.
From a West Ham perspective, as soon as he came on, felt like we had a chance. Really, seriously, as soon as he came on, it was like suddenly there's something. We've got something in this game.
West Ham hadn't really done that much for Pep to think, I'll have to bolster up the defence. They hadn't done anything even to that point. They hadn't really looked as though they were going to get an equaliser, to be honest with you. And yet Pep threw him on, and I thought, as he said, he just seemed to sort of ruin the flow of the game as far as great goal, easy goal. I don't think the goalie had any chance, Fabian. I don't think he saw it. It was unsighted, I think, by one of his defenders or something like that. and he took just a nice side foot in. Great goal, but as I say, it could have turned. He could have actually turned the game West Ham's way, with those errors he made. But fortunately, as you said, the goal was far too little too late. And I did enjoy the fact that Bernardo Silva took the kick off and just booted it towards the corner flag and then legged after it. I thought that was funny, waiting for the referee to blow. The referee must have said it's over to him, because he literally just wellied it and then raced after it. I mean, I have no idea what he was doing there, but it was quite a funny end anyway to the game.
Yeah. Next up then is the manager, Pep Guardiola. What did you think of his team selection yesterday, Bernard?
It's options. As I said, we talk about the bench. He doesn't have a lot of option at the moment. So, I got 10 of the 11 right. The only one I got wrong yesterday was I thought Foden would play. I didn't know he was injured, but I got all the other 10 right. I actually got 10 right for West Ham as well, but I thought Bowen would play. So that was my one that I missed out with West Ham. So I'll have to see if we can get a bet on these. How many I get out of the team. But yeah, I think he stuck me. I think there's not a lot. The only thing he could have done, obviously, and I knew he'd dropped Stones. He may have said he rested Stones, or he said he was injured or something. I don't know. He had a knock or something. I'm not too sure what it was, but I thought he'd bring Laporte in, because obviously that's his favourite centre half pairing. But he doesn't have a lot of option after that, I don't think, mate. I don't think so. He played the best team probably that we could play on the day. Might be just one or two slight exceptions, but. Yeah, but I say the tactical Fernandinho sort of worked, but it could have gone wrong as well. So, but hey, Pep's Pep, isn't he? And we won, so that's all that matters.
Yeah. We'll go to you then, Jack. How do you think City played in the game yesterday?
Thought you were outstanding, really. We've talked about struggles in the final third, and if you'd been a little bit more lethal in the final third, then it would have been a hiding, I think, because you were so good in construction. Struggled a little bit in the first 10 minutes to get to grips with us really flying forward out the gates, but after that just took total control of the game, and right up until the last 5-10 minutes were fantastic. So really strong performance, and I would be surprised if it doesn't go right down to the wire between yourselves and Liverpool this season.
Yeah. Same question for you, Bernard, but the other way round. How do you think West Ham played yesterday?
Yeah, I was very disappointed in them, to be honest with you. I think they're a better team than that. I think they know they're a better team than that. Then one or two reasons for it, of course. But as I say, they certainly, when I went to that one back in February, it's not that long ago, much more or less the same sort of squads, etc. They were superb, and they were unlucky not to get something out of the game. And this, for me, as I say, they did look a little weary, The defence played very well. They got the bodies in the way, etc., etc. But they did look a little bit. The transformation from defence to anything else attacking was a bit dodgy, to say the least. And I say, for a team that have done very, very well this season, West Ham, they've done, we were not panicking, but we were, I've got to be careful now. But that's the City fans' way anyway. We're panicking about Villa now away. I mean, this is everyone's we're typical City, I mean, it is what it is. But perhaps they've overperformed a little bit at the moment. I think Moyes thinks they're doing better perhaps than they should, and I think he's admitted that, hasn't he? I think he's sort of said that he thinks they've overperformed over and above, which is great. But a bit disappointing, because I think they're better than that. They're definitely better than what we saw yesterday. I think they are. And the conditions didn't help. And I think basically City just adapted to conditions far better than West Ham. And once that first half was over, even though they cleared the pitch, etc., I think the fight had gone out a little bit out of West Ham, to be honest. I thought they were a bit weary. And as I said, they were weary against Wolves. I just think they've lost a bit of impetus. Even at 1-0, I know West Ham scored, but I couldn't see them coming back into it. And it's not often with City, because you can always have a break, can't you? I mean, look at Palace play games like that where you've got an Antonio. I mean, I was worried to death about him, but he just didn't offer anything. Doesn't offer anything in that game. And there's probably 3 or 4 players came out of it pretty well. Obviously, Declan Rice was the main guy for me. I thought he was excellent. Some of the other guys, yeah, bit disappointed West Ham. I think they're better than that, and I think they'll get their act together, and I think Moyes will get them playing better again. But I think they've had a bit of a mixed week, haven't they? I think they're happy with the Europe, but obviously the Wolves and City, and now they've got Brighton. They're panicking about Brighton now if they're an unlucky omen. So get Brighton beat, and then obviously you never know. Obviously you've certainly got the capabilities. Hopefully you can beat Chelsea. That'll be a nice thing as well. Give them a stuffing, but you know. Why not? Why not? Well, they always seem to raise the game. I mean, you know, are you playing at home against Chelsea?
We are, yeah. We are, yeah.
So I mean,
I give us a decent chance in that game.
Yeah.
We're much better.
Chelsea are all right. I mean, if you say the three teams, I think you're saying about the title there. I think Chelsea are the more likely to drop out because they do. Yeah. They do have a few young lads in there, and I know we said about you can't win anything with kids and all this sort of thing, and we have a laugh about it with United in the old days. But yeah, that's Chelsea's problem. Yes, they do have a strong bench. But they have got a lot of kids in there as well. You know, younger players, 4 or 5, perhaps in the first team as regulars, and week in week out they've got to do it. Certainly, we'll see. We'll know better in January. They're still up there in January. Then why not? They'll grind it out week in week out. But yeah, West Ham, I think will be all right. I think top 6. I'm not sure about top 4 long term for West Ham. I don't know what you think. I think a couple of the other guys will play better. I think people like Tottenham will improve. I think people like even Arsenal might improve a little bit. But who is there? I mean, not Leicester. Leicester are nowhere now, are they? I'm just trying to think who would compete. I would say certainly top 5. It'd be nice to get 4 for West Ham, but they're going to have to play a little bit better than they have done the last couple of league games, in all fairness. So, and with a busy period coming up, it'll be interesting, won't it? We'll know better once Christmas is out of the way what West Ham are going to do, I think, as well.
The only thing I'd tack onto that is I think it wasn't a great reflection of how we've played this season. I think it's a great time to play us. We've just lost a key player, and it's the hardest run of fixtures we've got for the whole season. Yeah. Liverpool, Wolves, Man City, Brighton, Chelsea is the hardest little flurry of games we have throughout the whole season. So it was the perfect time to come against us. And I think even for a side like you say that played without much fluency to lose only by a single goal is a pretty good reflection of a team that can dig in even when we're at our worst.
Yeah. We'll go back to you again, Bern. And next up, the referee, Michael Oliver. How do you think he did yesterday?
I don't remember too much bad. I mean, obviously, we're not big fans of Michael Oliver, but I don't think there's anything significant that I can remember yesterday. Obviously, the VARs were straightforward and offside was straightforward as far as I know. There's nothing wrong with Oliver or VAR yesterday as far as I know. Michael Oliver's Michael Oliver. He'll just be as bad for us as anybody else. You know what I mean? It's just, he'll do something bad for West Ham and they'll do something bad for us. Just the inconsistencies, but all the refs are like that. So it was Michael Oliver. That's all I can say about Michael Oliver. He was Michael Oliver yesterday.
Yeah, and Jack, how do you think Michael Oliver did yesterday?
Fine. I think some West Ham fans have some complaints about fouls in transition, but you're the best team in the league at that, and you always seem to get away with it. So yeah, I think sometimes I feel that referees could be a little bit more punitive with City in particular, with making fouls early in transition, because you're very good at making cynical fouls before moves end up in sort of a 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 situation. You'll catch it a little bit earlier, so it doesn't look quite as bad. But often those fouls are as serious as the one that Laporte got booked for. So yeah, I think that's just more of a general point about City and the way City are reffed. But you're very effective at doing it, so can't complain.
Yeah, we'll go back to you again then, Bernard. I know you, Jack, weren't at the game yesterday, but the fans, Bernard, how do you think they were?
I mean, the fans that come to the Etihad, I mean, we were quiet yesterday. I don't think the cold got to us. And the guys around me compared to that Champions League game the other day, it was just, it's hard work, and you can't clap because they've got gloves on. So I mean, a lot of our songs you have to sort of clap. You sort of get the rest of the stand up with the clapping bit. And to be honest, West Ham were probably the best to come to the Etihad so far this season for any other season. But I mean, with no respect, it doesn't say much because we get some right crap away fans at the Etihad. To be honest with you, total waste of time. But yeah, I would say they were the best fans. I mean, obviously we got a bit. The Bubble song is a bit too repetitive. I mean, we seem to get that a lot, and we're singing like you've only got one song. Then they come out with something about Benjamin Mendy, and I thought, well, that's not. all right, it's topical, but I mean, so that was about it, and they enjoyed that. But yeah, they were all right. Again, good. We seem to get on all right with West Ham fans generally now, and we always since the 80s, of course, that all started with you guys probably wouldn't remember it when City got relegated and the West Ham fans came on the pitch and they thought it was all going to kick off, and they just ended up applauding the City fans and vice versa. And we've been pretty okay since then. Before that, no. I mean, I've been in a couple of run-ins with West Ham fans in my old days, but yeah, we seem to get on all right. And we have a bit of banter, but I don't think it was too much yesterday. But no, all credit West Ham fans. He sold their allocation. I tell you what, mate. I mean, I would say about 7 or 8 teams sell their allocation for the Etihad. They never, very rarely do teams sell it out. Even though it's only 3,000, it's not much. But we sort of have loads of, we have a laugh about empty seats, but we do have a load of empty seats. We end up having to try and sell them to City fans, and we can't fill our bit half the time, so it's even more difficult to sell them as well. But no, West Ham are all right. I say. Yeah, we got a bit bored with the Bubble song after a while, but we only bang out Blue Moon about 2 or 3 times in a game. We don't bang it out, 20 times in a match. I mean, we do try and do other things, other songs, So nah, they're all right. They're okay. They're okay.
Yeah. Back to you again then, Bernard. Who was your man of the match?
The groundsman. Yeah, I'll give it the groundsman yesterday. I don't think any City player was particularly outstanding. They had some good games, a couple of good players, obviously, but I'll chicken out of that one and just say, obviously, I think West Ham fans were hoping they wouldn't get the pitch cleared at half time, but obviously, because it could, obviously, even at 1-0, you thought, well, we're going to add to this rather than anything else. But yeah, I mean, obviously, on my markings, if I had to give one, Rodri and Gundogan were my 2 top marks, so I'll probably give it Gundogan because he scored the goal. So, but yeah, the groundsman definitely.
Yeah, and Jack, who was your man of the match?
Overall,
West Ham one was Declan Rice. He was my man of the match for West Ham. So Gundogan was probably the man of the match anyway. But for West Ham, I would say Declan Rice, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I completely agree. Overall Gundogan, and for West Ham, Declan Rice. And just on the fans, Bubbles gets belted out when you're getting beaten 1-0 and the team are playing the ball around you, because you don't really go for any of the chants about any of the players because you're a bit miserable. so you do.
We start thinking about United and various things. So we find, and Liverpool, I mean, they're the latest one. So we just bang out the old. We even get Balotelli sung about, and we get a bit bored. We start singing all the old. And Sergio, of course, got a few mentions and stuff like that, and we have a go at the other fans by singing "Stand Up for the Champions." Then we have a groan at them if they don't stand up and stuff like this. So it's quite good usually.
We did well to get up there. There's like 2 train cancellations on the trains that were going early, so it's tough to get up.
Yeah, I think most made it. I'm not. I didn't see any big. I mean, to where I am, I can't really see. We're in the bottom tier anyway, but there's only a few little spaces that we noticed in the bottom tier, and so yeah, as you say, there's always going to be problems, and those people can't get there because of travel, but they did very well. And say, I assume they all got back okay. I'm sure. I don't know. The weather probably improved a little bit going down south. It's a bit worse as you get up north. I mean, I don't want to go up to Newcastle on a day like that. That's for sure.
No. And the final thing we're going to look at then is the Premier League table after this weekend's fixtures. We stay in second, but Chelsea, of course, dropped points to United, means we're only a point behind. West Ham are in fourth, on the same points as Arsenal, but a better goal difference. We'll go to you then, Jack. How are you feeling for the game coming up against Brighton?
None of us ever predict Brighton positively because we've struggled against them for years now. But to be in fourth at this stage is really impressive. We've played some of the more difficult games as well. I think just really Chelsea to go that we feel really concerned about in the first half of the season. So, and also Arsenal have just had a great run of fixtures for a long period. So I'm not hugely worried about them overtaking us immediately or keeping it in the long term. So yeah, just got to bounce back against Brighton, get a positive result, and then try and get something out of Chelsea, and then we can sort of restabilize and try and keep pulling away in terms of the top 6 positions and create a gap.
Is Brighton away, Jack? You playing them away?
No, Brighton and Chelsea both at home. We've had a couple of away games on the bounce.
No
3 out of the last 4 have been away, I think. So
just wonder whether the Brighton fans will be booing their own team again. If that's a good sign, if they did, you know what I mean? That'd be great. You know, wonder if
Yeah,
very
strange, so strange.
Definitely. We'll go to you then, Bernard. Chelsea dropped points last night. We win. It was a good day overall yesterday for the table.
We've got to keep grinding this out. I say we're not. I think we've got a gear or two to go up yet. I know that's a bit of a weird thing to say, but obviously we're just grinding out results and we're winning games by a goal where we should be winning them by 3 or 4 goals. To be honest with you, and obviously that'll sort of bite us in the bum long term, I think. But yeah, obviously them 3. As I said, I worry about Liverpool, so because they are sort of scoring a lot of goals now as well, aren't they? So they sort of seem to be going back to their old what they were when they won the title a couple of years ago, where they were just battering teams and doing that. So I do worry about them, but I know I don't worry about City because I think we can improve. I think Chelsea and Liverpool are probably almost at the maximum. And I think City can improve. So I'm not giving up on it yet. That's for sure. And I'm still quite, I'm usually a glass half empty anyway. But I'm still quite positive going forward. Let's get KDB back in form and Foden playing and stuff like that, and we'll be a totally different team. But injuries in it. It's injuries with Liverpool, Chelsea, and us. I think it's gonna come down to that. Who keeps the squad fit? To be honest with you. And obviously, I'll take the Champions League or the league. I'm not bothered this season. One or the other. I'm not greedy.
Yeah.
I can't have the Carabao Cup, can I? So I mean, I can't have that anymore. So
sorry, lads.
So just before we wrap it up, we'll go to you first, Bernard. Where can we find you, mate?
Yeah, just on Twitter, Bernard Deneen at Charles Deneen. Or just spell Deneen 2 N's, and you'll find me if you go in any Google search engine. Just put Bernard Deneen in with 2 N's, and I pop up there like a rash, So any guys wanting to seek me out, just go on, just put that into your search engine, or get me on Twitter.
Yeah, and Jack, cheers for coming on, mate. Where can we find you?
You're welcome. At Jack Elderton on Twitter, jackelderton.com for the football writing, also on the Knees Up Mother Brown podcast, and at West Ham Till I Die for deep dive articles. Yeah,
cheers for coming on, both of you. You can find me at MCFC Hibs on Twitter, Hey Dugout Daily on YouTube. All Jack and Bernard's links are in the description. Big up Callum, who was also on here earlier. His links are down there as well. So thank you all so much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you all later. Take care and peace.